I just built a Psychiatrist Finder app that runs inside ChatGPT. You can literally ask it, find me a psychiatrist in LA under 300 this Friday, and it books the appointment for you without leaving ChatGPT's interface. Wow. Sam Altman recently said that developers will soon be able to monetize apps built inside ChatGPT, and that's a massive opportunity. We're still early. Very few people are actually building real apps here. So in this video, I'll show you how I built a working app using TypeScript, the MCP SDK, and the ChatGPT App SDK. You will see exactly how it works, from connecting data to displaying it inside ChatGPT. So by the end, you will know how to build your own and be ready for when monetization launches. And hey, if you're serious about learning how to build apps in ChatGPT before everyone else jumps in, make sure to subscribe because I'll be breaking down more of these builds every week. Alright, let's dive in. We are going to build a Psychiatrist Finder app. The idea is that users are able to write a simple prompt like this and find a provider in that location. They can eventually make a booking right from ChatGPT UI. Here's high-level overview of how data is flowing in the app. So first off, whenever a user sends a prompt, that prompt gets sent from ChatGPT to our MCP server that we are going to code in a few minutes. Then that MCP server has access to all these tools. For example, if the prompt is about finding a provider inside LA, then MCP would call this search providers tool, and then that tool would send the response back to ChatGPT. What ChatGPT would do, it would just render the response in its own UI. Let's set up your environment so you will follow along without any errors. First, go to nodejs.org and download the latest version for your operating system. That's what we will use to run our backend. Once Node is installed, open your terminal and run this command to make sure it's working. It's Node version and npm version. Both give you some version, you're good to go. Okay, next you need to install TypeScript using this command, and after it's installed you can check its version. If it prints okay, then that means that you have the TypeScript on your PC and you can move on to the next step. And then you need to install Git. If you have it, that's good. If you don't have it, then go ahead and install it from this website. Google it and you will get the link, and then you can install it for your operating system. And now we need to install ngrok. For that, you need to go to ngrok.com, log in with your email. Once you log in, you will get these commands that you can use to install, and you will also get your authentication token. You need to run both of these commands in order for it to work. That's it for the setup. Now we actually move on to building the application. I have already coded the app, and let me show you how things are working. First off, we have HTML files that we are going to render inside ChatGPT UI. I have these two files written inside UI folder like this, and then I'm just going to read these files inside the server.ts. Then I would just create a server with this syntax, and then I'm going to send both these files as a resource to ChatGPT. Then we define a few schemas using Zod, one for provider summaries and one for available appointment slots. These make sure that data flowing between ChatGPT and our backend is properly structured and validated. And then comes the most important part, the tools. We start by calling server.register tool. This is how we tell MCP server, hey, I'm adding a new tool that ChatGPT can call. Each tool is like a function that ChatGPT can invoke when the user asks for something. Search providers, this is the internal name of our tool. ChatGPT will use this name when it calls the tool behind the scenes. Here we're just giving it a title, then description. Next, we define the input schema. This tells ChatGPT what kind of data this tool expects. We use Zod, a validation library, to strictly define the types. Q is an optional search query. Filters is an object with optional city and price max fields. Then we define output schema. This describes what the tool will return. In this case, it returns an array of provider summary schema objects. Basically a list of psychiatrists with their info like name, rating, and city, and so on. And now we have a meta object. The meta section adds extra hints for ChatGPT. For example, OpenAI/output template. This tells ChatGPT which UI component to render. In this case, a custom HTML widget that lists psychiatrists. Invoking is the text ChatGPT shows while the tool is running, and invoked is the message shown once results come back. It makes the interaction feel smoother and more human. Finally, this async function is where the logic lives. When ChatGPT calls the tool, it passes queue and filter. We then use a helper function called search providers. Search provider is just a helper function that takes the input query and look up the providers for that location in database. Once found, it returns the top 10 matches. And for the database, I'm mocking the data for this application. However, in production ready application, we would need to use real database. After getting our matches from search providers, we further summarize the data to send back to ChatGPT. Here we create a short message depending on whether any psychiatrists were found. Just a bit of friendly feedback for the users. Finally, we return the result back to ChatGPT. The content array is plain text that ChatGPT can display in the chat. Structured content is the actual data payload, the list of psychiatrist objects. ChatGPT can then use that data to render the visual list using the template we defined earlier. Other tool also works on the same principle as the previous tool. We give it a name, title, description, we define input-output schemas, and then we give it meta object for extra hints for ChatGPT, and then finally we write the logic in an async function. In this tool, we are receiving an ID and we are finding a provider in a database based on that ID. The remaining three tools serves different purposes but are built similarly as previous ones. One tool gets all available slots, another one create a booking, and one just lists all providers. Here I'm just creating an express web server. It's a bridge that connects our MCP server with ChatGPT. The important part is /MCP. When ChatGPT sends a post request here, this code gets executed. This streamable HTTP server transport is the protocol that ChatGPT suggests to use. And the rest of the logic is written in these files, which I'm not going in detail. I would leave a link to my GitHub repo. You can clone it and play around with it. Now let me show you how to run this application. To run the application, you just need to write this command npm run dev. Click enter. It would start listening on port 3333. And then you need to go to another terminal, and there you need to write ngrok http and 333. So once you enter this, then it would give you these two URLs. This is the URL that we would need to put inside ChatGPT. It's listening on our local host. It's like a tunnel between ChatGPT and our local host. So we'll just copy this URL. Then we need to go to ChatGPT. Once we copy that URL, we need to go to ChatGPT, and then we need to enable a developer mode first of all. And to do that, we need to go to settings, then apps and connectors, and scroll down to advanced settings and enable developer mode. I have already enabled it, so I'll just go back and then I will create a connector. Here you need to give that URL that you just copied. And the important thing is that you need to append MCP at the end, and you can just give it some name. So I'll give it Psychiatrist Finder, and you can leave authentication to no authentication, and you can trust this application. Once you fill all that, then you can click create and it would make a connection. Since I have already done it, I don't need to do this connection again. So I could just come here and I could just refresh. And as you can see, it shows me like all the tools that are available inside my MCP server. I can also refresh, I can disconnect, I can delete. Okay, after refreshing, I think we can go ahead and test it. So let's say we want to find psychiatrists in our area. We can select the application and then we can say hello Please find me a provider in Los Angeles under $500. And now it would go look for the available tools. And it would ask for confirmation. We can confirm it. And as you can see, it found this tool called Search Providers, which we just implemented. We have a request body and the response body. Then we are going to show a card for that psychiatrist. And here ChatGPT writes its own summary. And now we can even ask it to make appointments. Alright, that's it for this build. If this tutorial helped you understand how to create an app inside ChatGPT, make sure you hit that like button. It really helps the channel to grow. And drop a comment below to let me know what you want to see next. Maybe we can build a more advanced version of this app or something totally new and more complex in the next video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.